And how about The Simpsons? How about The Simpsons keep fucking calling
Predicting
it?
everything.
They predicted the Apple Vision Pro.
When it comes to predicting the future, The Simpsons isn't just a cartoon. It's starting to feel like a prophecy machine. From recent economic turmoil to mind-bending technological leaps, the show's terrifying predictions are hitting closer to home than ever. As we head into the second half of 2025, things are not looking good. Every headline feels like another page torn straight from Springfield.
There's an old Simpsons episode where people are walking around with those goggles and they're falling into manholes, and now you're seeing people out there in the street swiping things and moving away and wearing these goggles on the street.
Coincidence? Maybe. But what if? They're warning us. In today's video, we're diving into 10 of the most unsettling Simpsons predictions that seem to be unfolding right now, and the future they might be pointing toward. Massive economic collapse ahead. In Treehouse of Horror 10, The Simpsons didn't just take things to the extreme. They may have tapped into something disturbingly real. Homer's reckless spending leads to a total economic breakdown, collapsing America's financial system like a fragile house of cards. It seemed outrageous back in 1999. Now, it feels eerily like they were echoing tomorrow's headlines. As we enter the second half of 2025, economic experts are sounding the alarm. Global markets are wobbling. Tensions over tariffs between the US and China are once again boiling over. America has taken a tougher approach with new trade policies, triggering pushback from Xi Jinping that may alter the balance of global commerce. Economists warn that the ongoing instability could threaten financial security on both sides. And then there's Bart to the future, casually tossing in a line about President Lisa inheriting a budget disaster from President Trump. It used to be a throwaway joke. Now it stings. Inflation is surging. The national debt is skyrocketing. And the danger signs are uncomfortably similar to what we saw before 2008. The Simpsons' darkest predictions aren't just strange coincidences. They're reflections of a shaky reality, tech empires under pressure, economies faltering, and rising global uncertainty. It's not just entertainment anymore. It might be a warning. And if history is any guide, the threat of World War III. Way before the rising global tensions of 2025, The Simpsons quietly dropped the disturbing hint. In a 1987 short from The Tracy Ullman Show, Homer nervously prepares his family for nuclear disaster, utterly convinced that the end is near. It felt like pure comedy at the time, but now, it lands very differently. These days, a major international conflict doesn't feel impossible. Tensions between superpowers are climbing. Military drills near borders, unstable diplomacy, cyber warfare. The quiet tension of the Cold War has turned into a constant, uneasy buzz. There may not be a war just yet, but the conditions are set for one small spark to ignite it all. Over the decades, The Simpsons have dropped scattered warnings of global collapse, bomb shelters, radioactive accidents, and haunting images of destroyed cities. It wasn't a single episode that predicted war. It was a recurring pattern, one that captured our deepest fears long before we spoke them aloud. Now, as headlines begin to echo those old animated scenes, what once felt like harmless satire is beginning to look like a slow, creeping prediction, coming to life. It wasn't one episode that predicted war, but a pattern. One that reflected our worst fears before we dared speak them aloud. As real-world headlines mirror decades-old animated paranoia, what once seemed like satire feels more like a slow-burning prophecy inching closer to the surface. Mars colonization. Back in The Simpsons season 16, the idea of starting life on Mars was treated as comedy, with Lisa enrolling in a training camp for future settlers. The year 2010-something sounded like a far-off fantasy where the family would eventually land on the Red Planet, until you look at where we are now. By the middle of 2025, real momentum is building. SpaceX's active cargo runs are laying down the framework for upcoming manned missions. NASA's experiments with survival gear are accelerating quickly. Mars-like habitats are already being tested, with researchers working on growing food, producing oxygen, and running essential life systems. At the same time, AI is stepping in to tackle the tough logistical and engineering problems of space travel. And with private companies like SpaceX driving the push beyond Earth, we could be nearing a breakthrough. The Simpsons may have played it off with humor, but right now, their Mars prediction feels closer than ever. Doomsday predictions coming true. And thank God it's Doomsday from season 16. Homer becomes completely fixated on the idea that the world is ending after watching a movie about the rapture. His paranoia spreads quickly. He warns the entire town of Springfield, only to be laughed off when nothing happens. But being Homer, he goes back, recalculates everything, and insists that Doomsday is still on its way. This all leads to a bizarre moment where Homer comes face to face with God himself, manages to strike a cosmic deal, and wakes up to find the world strangely reset. Back then, it was classic absurd Simpsons humor mixed with a little existential fear. But fast forward to 2025, and it hits a little differently. With society becoming more unstable, concerns about uncontrolled AI, and rising global tensions, those end-of-the-world scenarios, they don't sound so far-fetched anymore. Experts are warning that nuclear threats, climate disasters, or economic collapse could set off a chain reaction we can't reverse. The Simpsons didn't predict a specific apocalypse, but they captured the growing fear, confusion, fake news, and how fragile our reality really is. And now, in the world we live in today, maybe Homer's panic isn't as crazy as it used to sound. Brain chip implants. In season 12 of The Simpsons, there's an episode where Homer finds out he's had a crayon stuck in his brain since he was a kid, and that it's been holding back his intelligence. When the crayon gets removed, suddenly Homer's IQ skyrockets. But with that new intelligence comes the harsh realization: being smarter doesn't always mean life gets better. Now jump to 2025, and messing with our brain's wiring. That's not just a cartoon joke anymore. Elon Musk's company Neuralink has already implanted brain chips into humans, designed to help people with paralysis-controlled devices, using nothing but their minds. Sounds groundbreaking, but experts are raising concerns. Early reports suggest possible side effects, mood swings, seizures, and those tricky ethical questions about tampering with how our brains work. In The Simpsons, the crayon in Homer's brain was a metaphor for how delicate our minds really are, and how messing with them can have unexpected consequences. And today, as brain-computer technology becomes real, we're being forced to ask, what's the real price of boosting human intelligence? Osaka virus. In the episode Marge in Chains from season 4, a factory worker in Osaka lets out a casual cough. That simple sneeze turns into a disaster as crates full of contaminated juicers make their way to Springfield. What follows? Total chaos, mass panic, an overwhelmed healthcare system, empty shelves, and bizarre remedies floating around everywhere. Back in 1993, it played off as over-the-top comedy, but today, it feels eerily familiar. We saw it happen for real in 2020. A virus jumps borders not just through people but through trade routes, planes, and cargo. Suddenly, entire nations locked down. Fast forward to 2025, and new threats are already looming. Scientists are tracking fresh respiratory illnesses with pandemic potential. Global shipping, still one of the fastest ways to spread them. The Simpsons didn't just make fun of it. They showed us exactly how fast society can spiral from a single sneeze. Maybe that cartoon flu wasn't just satire, maybe it was a preview of reality. This was part 1 of the video. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for the second part. Thank you.